Hello, welcome back to my channel. For this Yu-Gi-Oh panel, I like to dedicate it to my older sister's friend, Julio. Hey, Julio, you. Now, here's why. This Julio, he used to pick on me for liking Yu-Gi-Oh. It's like, I'm a kid. Like, what the hell am I supposed to watch? Like, just because he was not into that kind of stuff doesn't mean he has to take it away from me. Especially like, one of the worst things about this Julio is that he was like almost at our house like every day. It's like, fool, don't you have your own home? It's like, yeah. Like this Julio, like especially like getting older, I started like, realizing like what kind of person he really was. He was just a wannabe tough guy, just wannabe cholo. Like, I do not need people like that in my life, especially nowadays. Like everything you see me doing on my channel, traveling and doing these conventions, what would he think about it? I wouldn't know. I haven't seen this guy in what, 15 years? It's like, you can't really have those kind of people in your life. Sure, they maybe think they trying to look out for you, know what's best for you. Like, just don't listen to those people. I am glad I never listened to it. And I'm like, otherwise I wouldn't be here, being able to talk to Dan Green that weekend. It's like, it really means a lot to me. And for anyone that was like bullied for liking stuff, whether it was anime or just anything nerdy, we have the last laugh. Like, look at yourself. Look at how you are now compared to when you were younger having to deal with all that bullying. Like, you should be happy for yourself that you made it and keep on going. And never let anyone get in the way of what you want to be in life.
My favorite color, black.
That doesn't sound.
How are you guys doing? We enjoying Nostalgia Con? Little nostalgia. That's awesome. That's awesome. I see you brought your playpen. Do you have questions for us?
I have tons of questions for you guys.
Do you?
Excellent.
Do you remember your first recording in the booth for the show? What was that experience like?
Yeah, for me that was a very clear memory because they don't tell the actors everything that's happening in the show before you go in. You learn as you go, and that's why you're very reliant on good directors like Eric Stuart, who did the first couple seasons of Yu-Gi-Oh! Did such a great job. But I'm learning as we go, and in that first episode, as you might recall, my character summons Exodia. And no idea that I was in a show where the series was going to go calling upon these ancient celestial godly energies or whatnot. I thought that was so cool. And we went to college together. We studied theater, and believe me, you can dial in some of that theater approach to acting when you're channeling such big energy. So that was hugely fun.
My first recording for Yu-Gi-Oh! So I was hired to direct Yu-Gi-Oh! And all of the casting had been completed except for Kaiba. And because I was working on other shows, I didn't really want to double dip. So my job for that show was director, not like, hey, I'm an actor too. The producer who was assigned that show had no idea about my acting background. I was hired to be his director. So we were doing a bunch of auditions, and I brought in a lot of people that we all know, and the producer kept saying, I'm not hearing what I'm looking for, I'm not hearing what I'm looking for. And we went through a couple of weeks of casting. And we were also doing a bunch of promos for the WB, coming soon, Yu-Gi-Oh! And I was like, not if we don't cast Kaiba, because he's in the first episode. So after a little bit of time, the engineer that was running these sessions with me turned around after the producer walked out for like the 10th time, not hearing what he wanted. And my buddy Joe Vegas, he said, how come you're not reading for this? And I said, well, because I'm directing the show. And he goes, but you're probably someone that could do this, right? I was like, yeah, I think I know what he wants. But that would be kind of a little awkward. He's like, yeah, I guess, but you really should say something. So the next time Lloyd came in, Lloyd Goldfine, very talented guy, producer, I said, Lloyd, listen, I know you don't know me as an actor, but I think I know what you're looking for Kaiba. Here's my idea. Let me dub half the show. If you love it, we're halfway done, and we'll make our air date. If you hate it, I'll continue casting. And he's like, okay. So I jumped in the booth, recorded some stuff, brought him in. He heard about 5 lines and said, that's exactly what I wanted. Walks out. The engineer turns around and looks at me and says, you couldn't have done that a month ago? Then we would have had some lunch breaks or something like that. So my first experience was that, which was just by chance that made sense. And honestly, it's not like I'm patting myself on the back as the right voice for the character. I just understood, which is going to be a big surprise to a lot of you, the sarcasm needed, and that fine line between being a rival and not a villain that I got. So it's not so much the voice, because I kind of sound like Kaiba. Anyway, it's the attitude. So there you go.
Yeah, I remember the audition maybe more vividly than the first episode. Eric was directing the show, and he and Lloyd, who we mentioned, were in the booth, and it's lonely, and I'd never done this before. I'm from a theater background, and I'm reading the Pegasus stuff, and then I was like, I think I added something. I threw in a little like judgy react or made a noise, and I looked through the glass and they were laughing, and I was like, okay, this is a good sign. This is a good sign. And yeah, to me that was sort of the moment that I was like, I think I'm doing this now. I'm a voiceover actor.
Yeah, that was actually an exciting session. I mean, Darren is a very, very talented singer as well. And being a great singer really helps in understanding the same instrument we use for voice acting, right? Inflection is pitch. And I really think that just made it it made it a little easier to make that transition from, all right, I know how to do musical theater, to now I'm doing Pegasus in an anime, you know?
And you definitely guided me through the technical elements of it. And yeah.
But I thought that was really perfect casting.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
Hello? Hello, hello. Hey, so my name is Matthew. I played that character down there. Can you stand up for a second? I played that character, Jaden.
Yeah.
Great costume, by the way. Outstanding cosplay. But I came in on GX, so they had already done Yu-Gi-Oh! They were pretty set and had their path. Everybody knew each other, and then Yu-Gi-Oh! GX came up. And I knew Greg and Eric. We were all with the same agency in New York. So just doing standard voiceover auditions for Toyota, come in now for 2.9% APR financing, that kind of stuff. And I was also a kid actor. I grew up on a TV show in LA called Little House on the Prairie. So going way, way back. But I'd never done anime before. And since then, I originally was directed by Eric at first. And then, of course, you directed me quite a few times after that. But I was like kind of the new kid on the block. And I knew you from the agency. Came in, did an audition, and it was pretty painless, and got it, and was a really fun experience.
Yeah, and another good casting choice, I thought. I love what you did with Jaden. Yeah, it's very, very well done.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Greg Abbey. I voiced Tristian in the original series and Yusei Fudo in 5Ds. I don't remember the first time I recorded, but my guess
There's a surprise.
My guess is that Tristian had 4 lines, and
What would those lines be?
2 of them were "Go Yugi," and I think the third one was probably "You got this." So I'm sure that's what it was, even though
That
also I have no
amazing.
memory. Incredible.
Yes.
Thank you.
Shakespeare of anime.
Do any of you have a favorite duel or moment from the show that really stood out to you?
When I was about to jump off the building because it was the only way that they would stop Yugi from winning.
You know, you say jumping off the building, at the same time you accuse me of cheating. Anyway.
I think Pegasus' arc at the end of the season, it was less about the duel and more about explaining why. Thank you for holding this. This is nice.
It's my man on the street.
I will be singing. Just kidding. Yeah, to figure out like, oh, that's why he kidnapped the child and did some bad stuff.
Each and every duel that Jaden did is very special to me, and it's almost like each duel is a child of mine. And can you really choose a favorite child? No. I love them all.
Well, that's
Nicely played.
I like Matt's answer. That's mine too.
Yeah.
I have a favorite and most painful memory of Tristian was he became a robot monkey, I guess.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
And it just went on and on. I'd walk into the booth, I'm like, what's happening? He's still here? Go Yugi! Go Yugi! Thank you.
You can see why they stuck with it, though.
Right?
Yeah.
It's pretty magical.
I do like Jaden's duel where he was stoned out of his gourd on LSD. There was one like that. It was like this drug-induced crazy episode. And I was like, what is going on here? This is a great show.
This will be very self-congratulatory, but one of the things that I really admire about the original series is that the series itself is a story with a beginning and a middle and an end. So with the closure to the characters that I portrayed, while there were tons of other great duels, that resonated most, and I often liken it to like a good fairy tale. It leaves you with a universal truth, something we'll all encounter, which is you're going to lose somebody you love. But what I love about the message of the show is, while that's always something that you're going to have to deal with, it'll always be sad, but it's not always going to be tragic. There you go.
There you go.
Looking back, what's been the most rewarding part of being part of the Yu-Gi-Oh legacy?
This.
Yeah, two-part. You
This.
guys, and also these friendships. I definitely had a bonus to working in this industry because I was directing. So instead of just passing each other in the halls as we were going into the next session, because we all worked most of the shows individually, I got to work with all of these people one-on-one. And whether I talk to them every day or once a month or every couple of years, like we all have a bond. And these friendships, I mean, it's just 25 years of Yu-Gi-Oh! And almost, I don't know, 28 years of Pokemon. Like, this is a special group of people. And now that we have a chance to see each other more often at these conventions, it's even greater. And of course, all of you. So it's an amazing journey for us.
I think my friendship with you, it grows and changes over the years, but it really blossomed when I no longer had to do what you told me.
Well,
But I often do what you tell me anyway. I mean, I ask Eric for advice on everything. He knows what he's doing. So.
Hello.
Now Greg and I were friends before Yugi, so it's like, yeah.
I love working with actors, and I've directed the past few Yu-Gi-Oh series, and yeah, it's still such a joy. I was just talking to Eric last weekend about it. Like, I still love this process. I love the show itself. I love telling a story. I love each day I get to work with a different slew of crazy actors, and it's a great gig.
I'm going to be working the red carpet at every event as the man on the street, Matt.
Cramp up.
So, I'll just say this about doing the show. Nothing but good memories about doing the show. The thing that stayed with me with Jaden is I love the character Jaden, and it's what I brought to the character, but it's also what the character was that I had to, portray. Jaden was just super optimistic and just, the duel's not over until the last card's played. And he just never gave up. And if somebody, didn't have a good duel, that's okay. You didn't win today, but there's always tomorrow. And even if you don't win tomorrow, I'll still be in your corner, And the amount of people through my life that find out that I was the voice of Jaden, that come up and say, I had kind of a tough childhood, and everybody didn't all have the same luck. And coming home, running home from school and watching the show as a kid, maybe I didn't feel that great about myself at that age, and we all go ups and downs through our lives. But he said, or the person I was speaking to would say, coming home and watching Jaden on that, even if I was feeling a little down on myself, he always cheered me up and always let me know that I might not win today, but there's always tomorrow. Which, come on, that's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, I mean, when people ask this question, I always kind of say the same thing, which is I love doing the roles and voicing the characters. Being a part of the show was great. But when I think about the time for kids, I always think about the people. And that was best part of it for me. Like Dan said, I've known Dan since I was 18, so we were already close friends. And it wasn't just the actors, directors, it was the producers, it was the engineers. When we did Turtles, it was the storyboard artists. It was like this, and as an actor too, a lot of times it's very disparate. You don't have a lot of connection. You're going to an audition and leaving, or a quick job and it's ending. And this was a place we were all able to go, even if it was a couple of times a week. And I just made amazing friendships, relationships. We've been to each other's weddings. We've all had kids. So that's also why it's special to see all the fans. It's special able to spend time together. So that's what I think of as the people that we got to work with.
Test. So I got a fun question. If you could pick any monster card to have as a pet or
Blue Eyes White Dragon.
in real life, which would it be?
As a pet.
Pet, companion, whatever.
Karibo.
Pot of Greed.
What does that do?
It's like, oh, that sucks. It's bad.
I gotta say Wing Karibo, but Fling Wingman. But but then when I say Fling Wingman, it's got to be Bubble Man, and when I say Bubble Man, they're just too many. So I'll go with Wing Karibo.
I live in New York City. I'd like to walk around the city with the Stardust Dragon, just like a chain. But like a big one, and just bring it on the subway.
I'll probably ask this question at every panel, but for those in the audience who are looking to be an aspiring voice actor, just getting started, what would your one bit of advice be for them?
I actually had taught voiceover technique for over 10 years. I'm not currently teaching, but anybody who does that will tell you the acting part of voice acting is the most important part. Nobody cares how you sound if you can't deliver a line convincingly, right? Do you have to be the best actor in the world? In my case, obviously not, right? But you have to be good enough to make the moment happen, to make the story happen inside the audience's heart.
Yeah, and I'll add to this as well. I'm a big believer in following your passion, and what if are like my least two favorite words in the creative world. You will run into a lot of people that will tell you there's too many actors, there's too many artists, there's too many musicians, there's too many, all of the creative things. And usually that's two types of people. One person is jealous of your ability, and the other person is probably worried about the competition that they're going to face if you do get into the business. I say bring it on. I say attempt it, go for it, right? Because the worst thing is, you got to go back to the other thing you're doing, right? You can always go back to that. I'm not saying be irresponsible, still pay your bills. I always had a day job while I pursued the things that I wanted to do creatively. But I'm never going to listen to anybody who says you can't. And if you are pursuing this craft, don't just dabble. Really pursue it. Find people that can teach you. Work in any kind of improv situation. In this particular environment, how many of you draw? How many of you guys play music? How many of you guys write? How many of you guys want to be voice actors? Okay, I just saw 5 production teams. You guys should all be talking to each other because you all share the same passion for stuff and you probably are very, very creative. I get fan art given to me all the time and I'm like, oh my goodness, do you do this? And they're like, no, I just got it. It's like, why don't you do, oh, there's so many artists, really? But if everybody said that, no. So honestly, that's my advice to you, is if you want to get into voice acting, find every way you can do it. And don't let people tell you you can't. Darren. Can't be tough, thank you. On to you, Matt.
I'll say, once you're, is this?
I think they turned us down a little bit. Can you check our, yeah.
All I'm going to say is that, Eric, stick with that. If and when you're auditioning, I think a lot of people become really, whatever it's for, a lot of people become too obsessed with the words on paper, and you got to say the words, you got to say what's written, and you have to be respectful of that. But a lot of times, as actors, we'll go through it and we'll say, okay, what are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for somebody who's this and this kind of attitude and, giving your own thing. So you go through, you say it one time, and then I'll turn to my director and I'll say, can I give you one? I'll give you a couple the way you wanted it, and then can I do one take with maybe my own special thing on it? And then you give them that. And maybe it doesn't work at all, and maybe they hate it. But that way I honor what they asked me to do. I give it my own little personal flair, as long as it's not too out of there. And sometimes the director, the producer will say, you know what, everybody's coming in just said ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, the same way every time. There are a lot of good people that can say it that way. We're looking for somebody to go out of the boundary a little bit and give it your own personal take, and we really like that. So I think as long as it's within reason, be an individual as well.
I feel like maybe Dan touched on this already. So anytime someone asks me, I always tell them to study acting, because even at 4Kids, all the artists and actors there, they were actors first that also ended up doing some voiceover, but you're pursuing everything else at the same time. And even if you're doing animation, you want to be trained as an actor. And then the other thing I would say is, like, you gotta grind if you really want to do it. It's so competitive, you gotta love it and want it, and if you don't, you probably shouldn't do it, because it's too hard and it's too competitive. You can't really do it as a hobby because you just won't get anywhere. It's really hard, it's really competitive, so you gotta love it, and then if you're gonna pursue it, you gotta work your ass off, you gotta grind.
It is voiceover work.
It's good answers all around. Yes.
Any questions in the audience?
Oh, we do Q&As? Let's do it. All right. The price is right. Here he goes.
That's a television show from the past.
Sorry. Oh, you got to turn his mic on. Did you turn his mic on? Yeah. Hey.
So I remember Andy Gregg said that y'all had some background in theater.
Yeah.
And I remember you also mentioned that when it comes to voice acting, it's not just reciting lines. You got to have some emotional inflection behind the role. Were there like any theater plays or roles in theater that kind of helped y'all influence your roles in anime, and you, not just Yu-Gi-Oh in particular, but like all of your voice acting career? Was there a theater production that helped you influence that?
Is that just to either me or Greg, or everyone? Well, I'll say this, that I think every artist integrates from what they've experienced. You know, it brings it to the moment that they have to create it. And yeah, I think that there was a lot that I learned from being well trained and educated in a school that was doing a classical training program, so movement, voice, and acting, not just acting. I learned how to use my voice better because of those classes. I learned how to use my body to free up myself so I could be a better performer, you know? An actor isn't just using their mouth and their vocal cords, right? So all of that you can draw on. And it's not just for a role that you want to create, but again, anything that you do creatively.
Yeah, I mean, Dan kind of covered it. I don't remember a specific theater role, but it's just the experience and the craft and the training and the work and the experience that you're bringing that with you into the booth. And that's why I said they mentioned that too. So if you want to do voice acting, just take class, do improv, scene study, voiceover class, because all that stuff's going to add up when you walk into that booth to audition for that animated role.
I would say that I'm probably the oddball out in terms of my background of how I sort of stepped into this, and Darren and I both come from the music side, but I got a job at 18 working in a recording studio for a production company where they did casting and production for voiceovers. So I learned everything by listening to some of the top actors in New York City during sessions. I was a sponge, you know, as we would give them direction, listening to what they did, what they gave back. And then, because I was a musician and a singer, I understood how to use my voice. And in school, I used comedy to make friends. I got in trouble a lot. I'm not saying you should follow my path, but I had that skill. And most funny people usually are dealing with also a lot of darker things. Okay, one of my heroes was Robin Williams, and when I first was the new kid at school, I wore suspenders and did my best. No. I was doing all that stuff, and someone that funny, not that I compare myself to that, but also that was dealing with the demons too. I felt like I could play darker or funny characters because I could relate to the situation. I don't know how to duel. I don't know how to fight it with Pokemon, all of that stuff. I played a lot of sports in school. I used that competition in my delivery, but I could relate to all of that stuff. So I didn't go to school for acting, which you probably can tell from my acting skills. But I think that I've become a good voice actor because I also absorb as a sponge of performances around me, and some of the greatest voice actors around, I imitated, I borrowed from. Casey Kasem is Brock, if you haven't figured that out. That's who I'm being. So anyway, that's my background in this. No theater performance, but being a performer. Darren?
Yeah, I think like Greg, I'm constantly hearkening back to the tools, the mechanics you learn in theater school. It's about emotion and gut, that sort of thing, but there's also some really good mechanics you can rely on too. And as a director too, all the time I'm constantly trying to figure out why every single character is saying and doing what they're doing. That's where it's true. Why are you doing that?
Any other questions in the audience? Okay.
So I got a question for Darren.
For Darren.
So where did you get the unique voice for Pegasus? Because he has a very unique voice for any other anime characters from my childhood shows that I grew up on.
Oh, thanks. So coming in, you get the script and you get a picture of him and you see him kind of in action, and you just, especially in VO auditions, you need to make some really quick decisions as to where you're going to take something. And he looked like a diva. He said some mean stuff. He also had to sort of duel, which was a more intense side of him. He did some mean things, and so that all kind of added up. Where I wanted him to sound elite and fancy, and justifying that crazy suit he wears.
He likes juice.
Grape juice and cheese. And luckily they give you enough rope to go for it, and thankfully they liked it. I'm sure you heard a lot of different approaches to the same character, but I got lucky.
Good question, thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
So, with the way the original show ended, there were a lot of plot points, character arcs that were still left unfinished, that could be told. So my question is, it's kind of a two-part question. If the right story were to come up that was honoring the characters, where they should go, if it was as close to, I know Takahashi's no longer with us, but if it sought to honor what Takahashi did, because the duels are cool, but he was really into the storytelling aspect.
Absolutely.
So, if there were like a group of people that were to come up and you have a really good story to finish up plot points, character arcs, and bring that full circle, do you think everybody, well, two-part question. So the first part is, would everybody be willing to come back and reprise their original roles? And then also, if so, how can we all partner together to make that happen? So like you guys within the Yugioh universe and your connections,
So he just mentioned a
base.
production company, right? Yeah, that's what we do. Guys, would you all come back?
Yeah, we would all come back.
I would come back.
I feel like the original, they're rebooting everything. The actors love doing the show, and we're all still around. We all love the experience of it. I think I'd come back in a second.
Absolutely.
And I'm friendly with a woman at Konami, and I'm always kind of half kidding her, like, you guys should reboot the original.
Yeah.
So you saw Dark Side of Dimensions, right? Okay, right? To me, that was the closest to the original, the way the story was told, the air in the story. You know, when we were doing the stuff for Saturday morning cartoons, you know, American stuff, it's like bigger, louder, you know, all that stuff, which is great, right? But the movie was more cinematic. You know, even just the way the music was done, the performances, I really appreciated that. But my two-part answer is, I feel also there are certain stories that should never wrap up. So I want to do these characters again, but I don't want to tie up the story. I want to tell another branch of it. So I would do it, but I would do it not to end it, because I think it's a classic.
Picking up on that, and I know you were talking about the original series, but I don't know how many times people ask me, am I ever going to finally have that duel with Jaden as Yugi? But a couple of years ago now, I had this idea that we should narrate the original manga.
Season 0.
With the original cast, not changing anything to make it anything but what it is on the page, so the characters would have their original names. And sure, that content's a little mature, but not for you guys, right? And I can't think of a better way to honor Takahashi's work. That's what I would.
So there still is a story to tell,
right? It's a story you're familiar with, but you haven't heard it all, let me tell you. And not that I've read all the manga, but I know that much. And it would be sort of a fresh way to hear these familiar voices, and it would be completely authentic.
And Tristian is a tough guy. You and Joey,
very little
you get to
monkey.
say a lot more than go you.
Yugi!
Yeah.
Can I duel finally?
No. In the manga, you guys are like in a gang.
You're like, Yugi, up yourself!
Yeah.
It's a whole different vibe.
It's pretty crazy. Good question though. Both parts.
My question is for all five of you guys. Now that you guys are older, more experienced,
Hey!
have a lot of wisdom, what advice or wisdom has self?
Back in my day, I would say embrace it all, do what you're doing, and you're becoming part of something bigger than you can understand.
Because of the schedule that I had working at 4Kids, both as director and actor, I was on such a sort of like treadmill of craziness that I really didn't have a lot of time to like smell the roses, to just enjoy the process. It was really a lot of pressure. And I felt in the 10 years I was on staff there, it was like 20 years. It exhausted me. And I really wish that we had approached it a little bit slower, to take the time to really, the nuances of all of that, but also just, you know, I wanted to enjoy the process. I do now, you know. People ask me, oh, did you watch the stuff? And I said, when I had to review it before it went on air, but I can't tell you if I ever sat down on Saturday mornings and watched it. I got to see some of the movies in the theater, but I did, the thing that I would tell my younger self is, tell everybody to just chill out a little bit and let's enjoy this and take a little bit more time.
I kind of wish this whole con culture had existed 20 years ago or been as vibrant, because it would have been very cool to experience these kind of interactions live while we were making the show. It's kind of an isolating experience. You're in the booth, you have a director, you have a sound engineer, that's it. You don't, and it took kind of years for me to really realize that, oh yeah, of course people are watching it, like, and absorbing it, and it means something, and it's a very deep, meaningful show to a lot of people, but it took years for me to figure that out.
I'll give one piece of advice. When I lived in New York City, is when I met all these people up here and did Yu-Gi-Oh! That's where we recorded. But I grew up in Los Angeles, in California, and I live in Los Angeles now. I was in New York about 20 years and met my wife and moved back and got married, and we live in Los Angeles. I don't have anything to say about doing the show, but for any actors out there, and not just actors, I think just in general, here's my piece of advice, especially to actors. Don't be late. And if you're on time, you're late. I cannot tell you, not with this crew, but I can't tell you how many times throughout my career, and I was never a late actor. I took my own advice. But I can't tell you how many mornings I'll show up, even now, and I'll be at Warner Brothers Studios or Universal or wherever we're recording something that day. And my call time's 9 o'clock, and I always get there at 8. And I get a cup of coffee and I read the morning paper or a book or whatever. So I'm there at 8 o'clock, sitting around for an hour, having a cup of coffee. And the amount of times a director or a producer who are in a really foul mood show up and say, where the hell is everyone? I want to start working. And they look at me and say, hey, you're here. Let's go in. Are you ready to start? Yep. Let's get in there. And at the end of the session, the director will say, or the producer will say, yeah, way to go. And I'll get a call a week later, or 2 weeks later, or a month later, saying, hey, I'm doing something else. You want to do it? Just because I showed up early and they were in a bad mood that day. Trust me, that's a big piece of advice.
Yeah, be on time, people. I don't think if I had to say something to my younger self, I'd probably say that I didn't even think for a moment when chose that they'd have a life that would go on. So I think I would tell myself to like appreciate this even more. I mean, I was certainly glad to have the work, but knowing what it's kind of, that we still have an opportunity to come out to events like these and talk about the shows, I would probably tell myself to just appreciate those moments, you know, just working on the shows.
Cool. All right. So yeah, thank you everybody. We're gonna close it up right now, but I'm just gonna throw a few more words out there. But first off, let's thank NostalgiaCon for the wonderful weekend we're gonna be having this weekend. A chance to meet all these people and have such a good time. How many people have been to a convention before? Raise your hand. Okay, so nearly who's new? Anybody new? All right, cool. So those of you, welcome. Those of you who are new to the world of conventions, the people who have been here and these kinds of things before can verify what I'm saying. It always kind of feels like this. Each convention's a little bit different, but there's always this sense of people having a good time together. And it feels good. And it's not hard to do. I was chit-chatting with some people at my table a couple weeks ago, and they said, yeah, it's kind of like an escape. And I knew what the woman meant. But I said, but you know what? It's not like an illusion. It's not like a fantasy we escape into. We can choose to be like this. And I've been so fortunate to get to know this community better over the last couple of years. And a couple people, more than a couple people in the community reached out to me because recently they're feeling a little more afraid, a little less safe. You may not be somebody who feels that way, but I know there are people out there that do, and I just want to offer a couple things. One, I know what you mean. Life is scary generally, and I understand some of the things that are making people feel less safe or on edge lately. I get it. I think that's a rational reaction. And so I would offer the idea of courage. Courage is not the absence of fear. That's fearlessness, where you don't care what happens. But you care what happens. That's why you're afraid. That makes sense. But courage is how you stand up to fear, how you face fear. If you feel afraid, that doesn't mean you're weak, right? That doesn't mean you can't be strong. That doesn't mean you can't be courageous, right? I know it's not easy, but I see it all around. Whenever I come away, who's doing any cosplays? Cosplayers right over there, right? How much courage does it take to do that? A lot. You know how easy it is to get ridiculed just for being normal, right? And I love how everybody here just embraces who they are, authentically are, who they want to be, what they like. Keep doing that. You have won at the game of life if you know how to do that. You may achieve other things in your life, but it won't feel as good if you aren't letting that true you be you, right? So you are a champion. And as a character I once portrayed said, stand up. A champion doesn't belong on his knees. So don't, there you go. Don't bend to fear. Of course you feel it, but don't let it stop you. And if you stand up, you're gonna make it that much easier for someone else to stand up. And I promise you, if you stand up, we're gonna be right there with you. Thank you.
All right. We got one last request from you guys.